Idea Brew Studios presents All Indians Matter in depth.
There is an indefinable, mysterious power that pervades everything. I feel it, though I do not see it. It is this unseen power which makes itself felt and yet defies all proof, because it is so unlike all that I perceive through my senses. It transcends the senses, but it is possible to reason out the existence of God to a limited extent. Even in ordinary affairs, we know that people do not know who rules or why and how he rules. And yet they know that there is a power that certainly rules.
Hello and welcome to All Indians Matter. I am Ashraf Engineer and this is the final episode of our 6-part conversation on Mahatma Gandhi's killing with Tushar Gandhi, great-grandson of the Mahatma and president of the Mahatma Gandhi Foundation. He is also the author of the book Let's Kill Gandhi, a chronicle of Gandhi's last days, the conspiracy, murder, investigations and trial. In part 5, we spoke about the myths and theories designed to confuse people about the assassination. In this episode, we will talk about why Gandhi matters even today, especially for the youth. Tushar, why is the truth about Gandhi's killing important today?
Ashraf, I believe that truth is timeless. There is no use-by date for truth. And that's why it is very important that when you know the truth, you must tell that truth to people, because people who forget the truth or abandon the truth or are ignorant of the truth are bound to commit the mistakes of the past, which finally end up damaging the collective goodness of all the people. And so I believe very strongly that since I have equipped myself with the truth, it becomes my duty to tell it as I know it to people. And that's where this entire knowledge is also continuously evolving. While we recorded this, I told you that another truth was revealed to me just 2 days back. And fortunately, because the reprint of my book has not still gone into print, I was able to incorporate that into the book. So the readers would get that. Because the other side is continuously cooking up theories to spread misinformation. And so it's equally important that the people who know the truth and who are honest enough to not decorate the truth or spice it up for effect must also tell it with equal conviction and strength.
And why is it particularly important to tell this truth to those who still believe in Godse's philosophy?
Because Bapu's martyrdom was the only thing that set them back. And maybe if we can tell the truth with equal conviction, we will be able to shake this nation out of the insanity of hate which we see it being gripped with, where love jihad becomes a national importance, where Gauraksha becomes not only a religious action but a patriotic action, and implying by it hatred for a particular community, hatred for the Muslims. I think the truth is the only cure for this deep-seated malice that is gripping our nation.
Did you and your family try to meet with Godse's family, and if yes, what happened?
This still confounds me, Ashraf. This why we went and met Gopal Godse is beyond my comprehension even now. But I was a kid at that time and I had no say in what my family decided. This was in the early 70s. I was hardly about 10 or maybe 11 years old at that time. My grandmother, Sushila Ben, came back from South Africa and she was staying with us. And one day she told my father that she wished to go and meet Gopal Godse. Gopal Godse had been released from his life imprisonment by then. Gopal Godse is Nathuram's brother and a co-accused in the Gandhi murder case, who had been sentenced to life imprisonment. And in India at that time, life imprisonment meant 14 years minus remissions and good behavior and all that. So Gopal had been released in the late 60s and he was just settling down into normal life with his family in Pune. And my grandmother expressed the desire to go and meet them. Now, The only reason why I think my grandmother wanted to do that was to convey to them that the family of their victim held no hard feelings against them, held no anger against them, or any desire for revenge against them. And so my father obliged his mother, and the whole family drove down to Pune. Generally, our ritual used to be that when we went to Pune, the first stop was Aga Khan Palace, to go to Ba and Mahadev Kaka's samadhis, the memorials to Kasturba and Mahadev Desai, Bapu's secretary, who had died during the imprisonment in Aga Khan Palace, and pay our respects to the two memorials, and then go about whatever else we had to do. And this time also we did the same thing, but this time, after the visit to the Aga Khan Palace, we went to the Godse residence. And we met Gopal Godse and his wife Sindhu Tai, and pleasantries were exchanged, and a few civilized dialogue was carried out, and we left. And that was the end of it. And I just couldn't understand why we were doing that, because I didn't see any remorse on the part of Gopal or his family again about the act they had committed. I did not hear any expressions of regret about what they had done, or even sympathy from them for the family, for the grief that they had subjected the family to. And while growing up, I just couldn't understand what was the reason that we had to do that. Now that I am hopefully wise, I believe that the intention was to let them know that we held no anger for them. But now that I am wise, I also want to make it clear that I wasn't party to that family decision. I still hold anger against them. My book is a result of that anger that I have bottled up inside me. I thought by writing the book and by sharing this information like this with people, I would be able to expunge that information from my system. But because the campaign of misinformation against Gandhi and the justification of his murder continues, the resentment also continues. And this is an effort to go beyond it. So I couldn't understand why we did it, but we did it at that time. And later on, when Gopal started becoming a public figure and became the icon of the Gandhi murder, he used to boast about the fact, and he used to claim that the Gandhi family only came to visit me because they appreciated what we had done, and they agreed with what we had done and things. Of course, the warped mentality of a murderer would always think that way. There was another incident also in his old age, when my friend Priya Tendulkar invited both me and Gopal Godse to appear on her show, Priya Tendulkar Show, to talk about the murder and things. And after the shoot was over, in those days we used to have those lapel mics, and for some quaint reason they had entwined the wire of the lapel mic in the leg of the chair we were sitting in before lapelling us. And when pack-up was announced, because the attendants were busy with everything else, nobody came to unmic us. And Gopal, being impatient and an old man, he tried to get up and walk off without realizing that he was still bound with the chair, and that small tug was enough to set him off balance. And I realized that he was going to fall because of that, and instinctively I rushed to his aid and I caught hold of him, and I not fall and regain his balance, and ensured that Gopal was secure and safe. But there were press photographers present on the set at that time, and so this action was photographed and splashed in the newspapers with the headlines that the great-grandson helps the murderer. And Gopal made hay of it. He actually framed that photograph and claimed that the action was out of admiration for him, that the great-grandson also admired his great-grandfather's murderer. Because at that time, Gopal had started claiming that he was also a murderer and as important in the conspiracy and all that. And when that happened, I really felt that I should have just watched him fall and break a few bones instead of being humane enough in trying to safeguard a frail old man. But that was that kind of warped belief, the self-righteousness of them, that they were grasping at every straw that they could clutch.
Do you feel bad about feeling that way about Gopal almost falling, Gopal Godse almost falling? It's not very Gandhian, is it?
It's not Gandhian. I don't claim to be a Gandhian also. I am a normal human being. But in my heart, I knew I would never allow the old man to fall and hurt himself.
What was Nathuram Godse without Gandhi? An insecure man, one who looked upon himself as a failure all his life, was perhaps driven by the need to be known, to make a mark for himself in whatever warped way possible. Indeed, the only reason Godse is remembered or mentioned today is because he attached himself to the Gandhi story by killing him. Godse has no relevance without Gandhi. This is evidence enough of the defeat of the ideology that drove Godse. Tushar, has your view of Nathuram Godse evolved over time?
I have understood the man. I have understood his need. A failure all his life. His claim to fame is in that one action of his life of murdering Gandhi. And I know that it is an irrefutable fact of time that whenever Gandhi will be mentioned, his assassin will always be linked with his identity. And so the only importance of Nathuram Godse is in being a murderer, and that is inescapable and unavoidable.
Let's get a little personal here. What was your home like growing up? What are the conversations at home, and what are they like today?
Well, the conversation, because in my childhood our home was sort of a transit camp for a lot of Gandhians and eminent Gandhians, ministers of the government and big luminaries would drop in at our home because we were the descendants of Gandhi and the home in Mumbai. So we had people like Rajaji and we had other Acharya Kriplani and many others. I have played in the laps of Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan and people like them. And so I had a kind of a knowledge of the historicity of those times. I used to listen into adult talks about life in Sevagram and the period during the end of Bapu's life and the period of independence and the early years of India, the ministry, Congress ministries and things like that. So I grew up listening to many important facts. I remember on one occasion sitting in Pandit Nehru's lap at the Raj Bhavan in Mumbai because he had ordered my father that whenever he was in town, he would like to spend some time with the family, and my father was ordered that he was to bring the family to Panditji. So we would all make it Panditji's office would inform us when it was convenient. And then all four of us would troop to wherever he was and spend some time with. And Panditji, during that time, nothing could distract him or dissuade him from being with us. So I have those kind of vague memories of that was very, very early childhood. I think I remember it more because it was told to me so many times in my childhood that I feel actually as if I remember those moments. But that was the kind of upbringing. When I started understanding things, I also used to hear the snatches of the confusion of the family about the murder and questions being raised and talked about and answers not being found about how that could have happened, and especially because the Kapoor Commission was in session. My father would come back. He was a journalist at that time, and he was deputed to cover the sitting of the Kapoor Commission in Mumbai. And so every evening when he came back home, he would be talking about the day's proceedings at the Kapoor Commission and the information brought about, and he would be filing his reports and things. So I would, somewhere in my subconscious, all that registered. And it created a lot of confusion because in my teenage, the voices of justifying the murder were getting louder and louder. And again, in my youth, in my 20s, I was expected to defend Gandhi. All the accusations would be aimed at me. Even today, they'll throw challenges to me and say, iska kya? What about this? So I am sort of expected to defend my great-grandfather. I have never felt the urge to defend my great-grandfather because I believe that he is much bigger than anybody like me to be capable of defending him or needing to defend him. But I believe that the truth must be told fearlessly. And so I keep repeating that, and that has become my nature. And I believe that this quest about garnering the truth, even after writing this big, huge book, I haven't been able to. I'm still reading the Gauba book as curiously and marking out details that I'm finding in there too. So the quest is ongoing.
Tushar, today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the BJP make a big deal about honoring Gandhi now, but these are also the same people who believe in the RSS philosophy. And the RSS philosophy is pretty much ties in, or at least in large parts ties into that of the Hindu Mahasabha. What do you make of it? I also want you to talk a little bit about simultaneously there is an attempt to paint Godse as this great patriot, to normalize his thinking, to even make him a hero. I think there was also some report about some temple being dedicated to him and all that. So what do you make about all of this?
You see, there's a lot of hypocrisy in the Gandhi worship. The Gandhi worship has been reduced to a mere ritual, and it's not only done by the Sangh. It was, the practice had become official in Indian politics, that there were 2 dates to be associated with Gandhi and we had to do the rituals and forget about it. Even amongst the people, that we were to do the rituals and forget about it. Even amongst those who claimed to be his followers. So when these pretenders came into power, the Hindi proverb is now become the practice. Muh mein Ram, bagal mein churi. I have converted it to Zubaan pe Gandhi, dil mein Nathuram, which means that Gandhi is on the tip of my tongue, but in my heartbeat his murderer resides. That is the exact and honest description of Narendra Modi. He claims that he is pained by the statement that Nathuram Godse is a great patriot who should be worshipped. But he continues to sit in the front bench of the segment of parliament where in the next exact row behind him, the member of parliament who said this in public sits as an MP. And this is what the claimed worship of Gandhi is all about.
Tushar, I want to take you back a little bit in time. Gandhi seems to have had a premonition about his killing, in which he described to his grandniece Manubain. Tell us about this.
In the last years of his life, Gandhi had talked about his death and the kind of death he wished to have on many occasions. This was brought about, initiated by the sense of betrayal he felt while travelling through the riot-ravaged districts of Noakhali and Bihar and then Calcutta and Delhi, and just kept increasing. And that was the time. Till then he was always talking about living for 125 years. There's an incident after a failed attempt on his life when he was in Pune. In his post-prayer speech, he talked about the last failed attempt, which was an attempt to sabotage the train that he was travelling in on the Ghat section towards Pune. And he mentioned that and he said, people have been continuously trying to murder me and I have escaped by the grace of God. And then he, in his light, flippant manner, he says, but I'd like to inform those people that I'm going to live to 125 years. I'm not going to die that easily, so they should not waste their effort. And in response, a few days later, at a public meeting organized by the Hindu Mahasabha, Nathuram Godse got onto the dais and he said in Marathi, गांधी म्हणतात की ते 125 वर्ष जगतील पण त्यांना तेवढं जगू कोण देते. Meaning, Nathuram said that Gandhi says that he proclaims that he's going to live till 125 years of age, but who's going to allow him to live that long? And this was one of the meetings that was mentioned by Ketkar, who was Tilak's grand-nephew, in Pune at the function to felicitate Karkare and Gopal Godse on their release, which led to the Kapoor Commission being instituted. This was, Ketkar said, look, Nathuram as far back as C46 had mentioned that he would not allow Gandhi to live that long. And so Bapu was not a fatalist, but post Noakhali and Bihar and Calcutta and Delhi, he started talking about death and he started talking about the kind of death he wanted. And finally, just about 24 hours before his murder, he told he had a racking cough and it was very bad and he refused to take medicines for that. And when he had those coughing fits, he could not sleep. So on one of those occasions, I think it was on 28th or 29th of January 1948, he told Manu, he says, Manu, if I'm to die by an illness, even by a small boil, then you must proclaim to the people that I was not a Mahatma as they believe me to be a Mahatma. He said, only if I die shot with a bullet and taking that bullet in my chest, and as I die with the name of God and without anger for my murderer, then you should tell the people that no, he lived a Mahatma and he died a Mahatma. And this was very chillingly close to what actually happened at the time of his murder.
You're saying just 24 hours before he actually
Just 24
was
hours before and this was recorded in Manu Ben's diaries.
Tushar, tell us about your book, Let's Kill Gandhi. Why did you find the need to write it?
As I told you, Ashraf, the book was my effort to expunge the venom of anger that was stored in me and was building up in me because of this continuous campaign maligning Bapu and the way it was gaining credibility amongst the youth in present day India. And so I used to feel very annoyed by that. And finally I came to the realization that if the lie annoyed me, then it was my responsibility to tell the truth and discover the truth. So my quest for the truth took me on the journey of discovering what I finally wrote in the book. And the book is my attempt to get rid of that poison of hatred which is in me. I realized after writing the book that I didn't flush the poison out of my system. I still get annoyed. I still get angry about it. I still get emotional when Bapu is accused of being a traitor. And so the book is a result of that. The title is revolting. Many people have complained to me, why have you named the book thus? It is the Banya in me who decided on this title, because when I was writing the book, the working title was Murder of a Mahatma. And then when I was writing the book, I came to a point where I said, somewhere or the other, the accused would have told one another, no, let's kill Gandhi. And then I found the incident, the Pune railway cafeteria where Nathuram and Apte used to go to have tea and coffee in, where they themselves claimed that the idea came to them. And I said, it must have started with this suggestion, let's kill Gandhi. And so I designed, those were the days of DTP and CorelDRAW, and I fancied myself as a graphic designer. So I designed 2 mock-up cover pages, one with the heading Murder of a Mahatma and one with Let's Kill Gandhi. And I used to have my office in Irla at that time. So in the reception area, I prominently displayed these 2 illustrations. And I noticed that 9 out of 10 people who came into the office instinctively picked up the cover page, Let's Kill Gandhi. And only 1 out of those 10 would look at Murder of the Mahatma. And I said, this will be the same reaction in a bookshop to my book. And so I said, there's potential to make money out of it. And so and I was proved right. My book was a bestseller for a short while on the Indian list. It's done 4 reprints and now it's going into a re-edited reprint.
So tell us about the process of writing it. What kind of research went to it? How long? What were your sources?
4 years of research and writing. But I must also admit the fact that when I embarked on this journey, I was stonewalled because the official secret act was still in place and a lot of documents were classified as top secret and denied access to and things. The Right to Information Bill had not been made law as yet. It was still being debated in India, I think. So I was stonewalled at many points of reference. But after I decided to embark on this journey, a lot of evidence and records just stumbled into my lap. Somebody would send me a magazine. I remember there was a very senior journalist called Madhur Velluri. He used to, I think he was associated with Business Standard or one of those business magazines, very highly thought of. He died at a young age. And his mother, in his memory, decided to hold an annual lecture by eminent people. And once I was invited to a lecture, and she presented me with a book of interviews published in a book form done by Madhur Velluri. And as I was reading that book, I came across his interview of Madan Lal Pahwa post his release and his interview of Parchure in Gwalior just before his death. And so I got information like that. Then one day I got some other publication which had an interview with Manu Ben. where she narrates the incident of 30th, the afternoon of 30th, and things like that. So a lot of it fell in. I got two books which were mothballed and put away in Mani Bhavan. When they took it out, after denying that their books were there, when they took them out, the cloth bundle in which it was wrapped, while opening it, one of the asthma patients got an attack. There was so much dust on it, 2 decades of dust. The books hadn't been opened. The librarian didn't even know they existed till my persistence got it. And the 2 books one book was a day-to-day record of the Red Fort trial and the police investigations called Gandhi Hatyakaand. And the other was English version of the day-to-day proceedings of the Red Fort trial. It was called the Red Fort trial. Nobody had even bothered to look for them. And suddenly I got access to them. And most of my writings about the trial and the police investigations are based on those books. So a lot of the material fell into my lap also. I don't know who instigated that, but circumstances so happened that I kept stumbling, because I'm not a trained researcher. I'm not a disciplined researcher either. I'm not going to go around trying to get substantiation for something that has been told to me. If somebody tells it to me in good faith, I'll say that this is the person who told me this in good faith. I have not bothered to ascertain its facts, but this is what I'm going to write about. You want to believe me? Believe me. You don't want to believe me? Don't believe me. So I'm not a disciplined researcher, but people questioned, especially Gandhi experts questioned why I had to write a book when I had nothing new to tell anybody. Because to those Gandhi scholars, they would have known all these things. No? They had done the studies and things. So they always ridiculed my book and said, what a waste of time. Why did he have to write it if he didn't have anything new to say? I'm not a conspiracy theorist who's going to think up or dream up an imaginary bullet or a fourth gunman or things like that. I was just writing a report, and what I ended up doing was what was dispersed over 10,000 documents has now been all gathered together and culled into one book. And that is the surprising aspect of my book for readers. When they read it, they say, oh my God, why were we never
Various
told
narratives
about?
have come together to tell one story. Was it, as you wrote it, was it a very emotional process? Because obviously it's also a personal...
It was an emotional thing, and it was like a verbal diarrhea. When I finished writing the book, the manuscript was 2,000 pages.
I don't envy your editors.
My editors, I think what they did was beyond certain number of pages, they just discarded everything else. And they brought it down to the initial volume was 900 pages. And in the re-edit, although I've added information, I've managed to bring it down to less than 500. So, with the loss of weight, there is a loss of intellect also. The book has shrunk also.
I'm not so sure. You normally feel better after losing weight. But Tushar, I'm going to come down to perhaps the 2 most important questions of the day. Perhaps the reason we are doing these episodes in the first place. Why is Gandhi relevant today?
The most important reason is we are hurtling down into the abyss of hatred, as we were hurtling down into the abyss of hatred pre-1948. If you look at it from 45 to 47, India was an inferno of hatred, on the verge of reducing itself to ashes. And it was Gandhi's sacrifice that saved that infant state and helped it get onto its feet. We are once again hurtling down into that abyss of hatred. Even when I wrote this book, I've written about it in 2007. But in 2020, the inferno is out of control. Till then, in the 90s and the early 2000s, the fires were in the distance. Now those fires have entered our homes. It consumes every individual. And unfortunately for India today, we don't have a Gandhi who can sacrifice himself to save us. And so the only safeguard against it is the reminder of the memory of that period. And that is why I feel Gandhi is most relevant. Because they killed the man, but even they realize that they have not been able to kill the thought of Gandhi, the ideology of Gandhi, the place in people's hearts. I see that when I go out into the country, when I go and meet the real Indians, the absolute downtrodden. And when they come to know who I am, whose descendant I am, you know, the greeting I get most often is, आपका तो पवित्र खून है, आपका तो खून पवित्र है. Doesn't matter what kind of a low life I am, but my blood is divine. That is the belief. And I believe that as long as that belief exists, if we rekindle the thought of that man, maybe it will save India. Otherwise, hope is lost for India.
Tushar, for my generation even, and I am a child of the 70s, the mid 70s, for my generation even Gandhi is integral to the idea of India itself. But for many young people today, he is merely a distant figure of history. What would you tell young people about why Gandhi is relevant today?
The one reason that I would point out immediately is the need for coining a new identity to India. Why? What do you think was the reason to start calling this India New India? Because the old India is so inexorably linked with Gandhi. And unless you establish a new identity, you can't divest the association with Gandhi. And that is where the relevance comes in. The people who absolutely hate Gandhi, who are in power today, who pretend that they adore and worship him, they are so troubled by that legacy of that man, that obstinate old man, that Khadus, that they can't live with him at all. And so they have to create a new version of the India. And I want to prevent that new India. Even if I'm the only man who rejects that new India, I will keep rejecting that new India, because that new India is not the India that was envisioned by the founders of this nation. And we have to be loyal to the vision of the founders of this nation. And that is where Gandhi becomes relevant, because it was his ideals, his ideology, which was in the foundation of this nation. I don't want to talk about any of the other philosophical things. The mere existence of India, and India where in a period of crisis, you see people even today left hopeless, left without support, running away for their lives to live because the rest of the Indian society doesn't care for them. In a India that is becoming more and more, or less and less compassionate, how do we save the soul of India? Or will it be a purchasable commodity also, like everything else, like the new iPhone? Will the idea of India also have every year new model which will be subscribed to and which will be sold at premium to everybody? Or will it be a cherished ideal that lives in our heartbeats? And if that is important, then Gandhi is unavoidable. That's what I believe.
And when you look at the young people today, your children, my children, I'm talking about 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, essentially the future of this country. Do you see hope?
Ashraf, if I have learnt anything from the legacy I have inherited, is never to give up hope. No matter how hopeless it feels. I am the guy who always sees the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel, even if it doesn't exist. I like to believe it, and because I think that only that belief will enable me to navigate or negotiate that dark tunnel. So I never give up hope. And I believe that we rather inconsiderately dismiss the youth today. They are not really that irresponsible or uncaring or unknowing.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree.
And so where there is that kind of compassion, it is our duty to encourage that compassion to become dominant. And so I refuse to give up hope.
Thanks, Tushar. Researching this series was among the most moving and soul-stirring experiences of my life, and that's no exaggeration. Thank you for taking us on this journey to help us understand one of the key events that have shaped India's history. Few would know not just such minute details of Gandhi's killing, but also have such a deep understanding of the implications. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you all for listening. I hope this very special All Indians Matter series opened your eyes to a key event in post-independence India and how it impacts us even today. Please visit www.allindiansmatter.in. That's ALLINDIANSMATTER.in for more columns and audio podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at Ashraf Engineer, that's ASHRAFENGINEER, and All Indians Count, that's ALLINDIANSCOUNT. Search for the All Indians Matter page on Facebook. On Instagram, the handle is All Indians Matter. Write to me at editor@allindiansmatter.in. Catch you again soon.